So this episode is a little different, and I just recorded an episode last night, and I don't know. I mean, maybe with all this time that I'm sitting here doing nothing because of my ankle, I have more time to be alone in my own thoughts. And I did an episode last night, and it's not like I didn't like how it came out, but as I sat here today thinking about it, um, this show has gotten kind of far away from its original intent. Originally, I just kind of wanted a place to offload my own thoughts, and it hasn't really been that because of Facebook Live. Because of Facebook Live, it feels more like I'm talking to an audience and I'm trying to please the people or something, and really I just want to get my own thoughts out there. And so I just had some thoughts today that I was thinking of, and a lot of it has to do with risk and risk taking and life and danger, and just obviously this whole broken ankle situation has made me think about that kind of stuff a lot, and just thinking about the way that my brain seems to work sometimes is I think about life as walking down a path, and there's always branches to other paths, and it's not like this is a very original thought. I'm sure that many people have thought of this before, but it's like, if I choose to walk down one path, right? I'm walking along a path. Imagine I'm walking along a path, and all of a sudden it branches, and there's a new path on the right and a new path on the left, and then the path that I'm on that's just going straight down the center. And I decide that I'm going to take the path on the left, right? I'm going to take the path on the left, correct? And but as soon as I step onto that path, in another universe or something like that, the original version of me continues down that straight path, and there's a whole other version of me that continues onto the right path. And that can be said about fucking everything. I mean, you can literally hurt your brain if you think about this stuff too much, because you can think of if I tip this beer, if I intentionally reach over and tip this beer can over, all the different things that happen after I do that. If I decide to go out right now and run to the gas station, and what if I didn't do that? And I just I think about sometimes of everything happening for a reason, and I guess we'll never really know the reasons that it happens, and if we're lucky, we might be able to have some retrospect to look back on positives that may have come out of that, or negatives that may have come out of that. I mean, living in general just seems to be risky. Like, just being alive in general, unless you fucking lock yourself inside the house. That was one of the things that bothered me the most about COVID, was the people who were just so scared to go out and were so scared to do anything. And they knew the facts. They knew that this wasn't a death sentence. They knew that it was a, survivable fucking virus. It was, similar to a flu. And yeah, there were people dying, but that was a very specific category of people. It was people that were elderly. It was people with underlying conditions. If you were just in general, healthy person, there was no reason for you to be so goddamn scared about it. So, it blew my mind when I'd be out and I'd see these people who are generally healthy, even overweight people, but they were in their early mid-20s, maybe even mid-30s. Maybe they weren't the healthiest people, but they were up and they were active and they were working, and they were, they're obviously not, running 3 to 6 miles a day, but they're active, they're doing stuff. They're not fucking sitting at home on the couch like I've been for 2 weeks, but they're not doing nothing. And those are the types of, it would just blow my mind that they got 2 masks on, they're wearing fucking latex gloves everywhere they go. Everyone that gets within fucking 10 feet of them, they're yelling at them. There's all these fights breaking out, and it's absolutely crazy. I've been reading this book in these last 2 weeks that I've been laid up, called Tribe, and kind of about how, not necessarily how war brings groups closer together, because it talks about how in New York City after 9/11, because of that incident bringing everyone so close together, that the city in general was like a calmer, more peaceful place to live for 2 years, for the first 2 years after 9/11, because of the way that it brought people together. And you would think that that should have happened with this. It probably should have happened with COVID, but it didn't. It did not bring anyone. It ripped the country, if not the world, apart. You know, it really, it made people. It just made people go. You know, it split everyone down the middle. You either believed, like me, that it was fine and you were going to be fine and everything was going to be fine and just, you know, let's continue life as it always has, or you landed on the other side of the aisle and you thought, you know, if you don't believe that this is a death sentence, and if you don't wear a mask, and if you don't stay home and do nothing, then you're part of the problem and you're an evil person, right? But anyways, I didn't want to get onto a whole COVID thing on this episode. You know, the whole reason for this was to talk more about risk. And I guess that's how I ended up in the COVID talk there. But I was just thinking of, you know, I think a lot about this broken ankle and the snowmobiling and my beautiful girlfriend, who I love to death, would probably not be a fan of the things that I'm about to say. But I think, you know, I had done 2 runs at this jump beforehand, and I didn't need to try the third one, but I would have ridden away from there just thinking to myself, what if I had done that? You know, what if I had done that and and it works out perfectly? There's only 2 ways that it goes. Either it works out perfectly the way that I want it to, or it ends the way that it did. That seems to me the only 2 ways that it goes. I guess there's a possible third option of me just driving along and never thinking about it again, but that's where I'm going with this, is that I didn't want that, and I never want that. I never want, this is the biggest example of that ever happening, but there have been many examples through my life, Rochelle included. Rochelle is actually one of the biggest ones in my life of, I'm going to take a risk here. I'm going to take a big risk. I'm putting all the chips on the table, and I have no idea how it's going to work out. I had no idea. When her and I got together, I had no idea. I left a 9-year relationship where I could have been comfortable. I could have continued on. I mean, I was miserable. I wasn't happy by any stretch of the imagination. I was not happy. It was just not a good situation. I don't want to get too much into what that was like, but I'll touch on it a little bit. My typical Monday through Friday was, I'd have to wake up in the morning. I'd have to cook both of us breakfast. I'd have to then do the dishes from that breakfast. Then I'd go to work, and I was working 10 to 12 hours a day because I just did not want to go home. I would go home. I'd be expected to cook outside on the grill. Didn't matter if it was raining. Didn't matter if it was 15 degrees outside. Didn't matter if it was snowing. I grilled in the snow. And it didn't matter. And then also do those dishes too. And if I was lucky, by 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, I might be able to sit down. I would pull my laptop up on my lap and put my headphones on and shut this person out as much as I could. I'd watch movies, I'd watch TV shows, I'd watch movies that I had seen dozens of times. I'd probably, that was, right before we broke up was when 6 Underground came out, and I watched that movie almost every night. While I did that, I would drink, and I would drink hard. I drank half a bottle of bourbon every night. I remember I got my tax return one year. I decided to buy the biggest bottle of Knob Creek that they make. It's like a 1.75 liter bottle, and it costs $60. It's just their basic Knob Creek, and it's their biggest bottle. And I bought that, and I thought to myself, good, this is good. I don't have to buy bourbon again. I shouldn't have to buy bourbon again for the next month. I mean, there's so much here. I shouldn't have to buy bourbon for a month. That bottle was empty in 1 week. I would buy a 12-pack of beer almost every night, and I would go through 8 or 9 of them. So I was buying a 12-pack every night. And then maybe once or twice a week I could skip a night because of how that math works. That was how much I was drinking. And I was drinking to fucking just, I didn't want to deal with this person. I would, pass out hard in bed and then get up the next morning and do it all over again, and developed obviously many, many bad habits. Obviously the drinking is a bad habit, but that was my habit. That was my life. That was every day. That was how life was for me. And I didn't like it. I knew I didn't like it, but I was comfortable. And that was the problem, it was a comfort zone. It was a total comfort zone to be there. And then I met Rochelle and talked to Rochelle, and we talked every day, and it felt much better, but still it was a risk to leave my comfort zone and leave that person to start a new relationship with Rochelle, who I didn't really know. I mean, obviously I knew lots about her. We talked all the fucking time. We talked every day. We texted back and forth every day. And we fell in love, but still, I mean, like every relationship, we had our problems, especially in the beginning. Now our problems, our passionate discussions, as I call them, they're few and far between. Maybe once a month we have to have some sort of passionate discussion. And really, I don't think that we had one a couple weeks ago that I don't think would have happened if it wasn't for this broken ankle. I think it was a little presumptuous of us. It was a little optimistic of us to think that me being laid up on the couch for this long wasn't going to end up with us banging heads at one point. But we got through it, and we did fine. And that's kind of how they've always been, and I'm happy with that. I like that very much. But it was still a risk. It was a risk to leave that comfortable relationship and get into a relationship with Rochelle. I had, obviously there were a mild, very, 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 very mild safety net that I had moved in with my father, and he, if things did not work out with Rochelle and I, then at least I would have had a place to live. I would have had a bed with a roof over my head. But still, I mean, that was not an ideal situation at all. And I probably would have been, I don't know if I would have been as miserable as I was before Rochelle, but it would have been pretty damn close. So it was a risk. It wasn't a risk that was going to break my ankle. It wasn't a risk that was going to potentially cost my life. It wasn't a risk that was going to cause me to be out of work, but it was a risk nonetheless. And I don't know. I mean, like I said, I look at life as these paths, and in some alternate universe, in some, alternate dimension, or however you want to look at it, I'm sure that, there's some other version of myself that continued on those paths, but I'm happy where I'm at. I'm even happy that this happened. 39 years old, I finally broke a bone. I remember being jealous when I was in fucking school, when I was in like middle school, and kids would break their legs or break their arms or something like that. And there were, the other kids that wanted to sign their cast. And I mean, I didn't get that on this round, and I hope that I don't break any more bones, but it's not the end of my risk taking, as much as Rochelle's going to hate to hear that. And she may never even understand it, but I just feel like it's all a risk, failure is not final, it's formative. You can grow out of failure. I looked at this, I was talking to Rochelle the other day about this incident and how I replay it through my head of what I could have done differently. And of course she defaults to what you could have done differently is you could have just gone on and headed back to your truck. And yes, that is obvious. That is definitely obvious. So that's the biggest I could have done different. But what I mean by what could I have done differently is I had hit fucking record on my GoPro as I came up to this jump. and GoPro sucks. GoPro does not work well in the cold. So the GoPro only lasted 11 seconds before the battery died. And so I took a video, and it stops right before I hit this embankment. And it's probably only about 3 seconds from the time that I hit this embankment to the time that I am back on the ground. It's probably only about 3 seconds, 3 to 5 seconds. So the thing that I keep replaying in my head is those 3 to 5 seconds. What could I have done differently? And if this hadn't happened, then I wouldn't have this experience to think back on that. I wouldn't have this experience to say, what could I have done differently there in those 3 seconds? Only 3 seconds. That is the difference. That is the moment that I can change something so that I don't end up where I'm at now. That is the difference between me writhing on the ground, screaming motherfucker. That's the difference between that and me going, fuck yeah, that was awesome. I can't wait to get home and tell Ro about it. That's the difference. Is 3 seconds of my life, out of over almost 40 years now. 3 seconds makes up that difference for that moment, and that can be said for a million things. Joining the military was risky, especially post 9/11, when you can be almost certain that you're going to get deployed at some point. Joining the military was risky. I can't even begin to count the amount of risk that I went through in Iraq. I mean, we took Humvees and climbed up these giant sand pits that for sure should have flipped that fucking Humvee over, and we did it anyways. I picked up unexploded mortars because why the fuck not? We shot into the desert for no reason. On my second tour, I had all the armor I could ever ask for, and yet I did all the things that brought on some form of risk to me. I stood up in the turret when they told us to sit down. I didn't wear eye protection or ear protection or, fireproof gear because fuck it, why not? My opinion on that was really look, if the fucking IED is going to kill me, it's going to kill me, all right? This fucking fireproof mask isn't going to help. There's so many risks. I mean, I run the risk of twisting my ankle every time I deliver the mail. And I've twisted ankles delivering the mail. I had the ankle that I almost broke a few years ago delivering mail. So there's a certain amount of risk. And of course, I guess I'm kind of getting paid to do this, right? To be sitting on the couch this last 2 weeks because my work is paying me, but it would be better to be at work making overtime. But it's also afforded me the opportunity to do a few things. It's offered me the opportunity to record 3 podcasts now in the month of February, which is up from the last few months. The last few months I've been lucky if I get out 1 or 2. I did my own taxes, which I never would have fucking done if I wasn't laid up on the couch. Rochelle sent me a bunch of classes to take. There's just so many things, and also there's also dumb stuff like that show Ozark on Netflix. Rochelle has watched the first 3 seasons, so she said, "Oh, if you ever want to watch it," and this was weeks or months ago. She said, "If you ever want to watch that show, and you can get up to the end of season 3, then we can watch season 4 together." So I watched the first 3 seasons of that show while I've been laid up. I've looked into certain things in my life that I'm not willing to talk about right now, but I've looked into certain things to help me out at certain points in the year. It just hasn't all been a bad experience, and it can be looked at pretty easily as a failure because I failed my jump, but I don't see it that way. I feel badly for the stress that it's put on my girlfriend. She took time off from work that first week or 2, and she drove me around to all my appointments, which is great. but I feel badly for that. Um, she's had to take the trash out for the last almost 3 weeks now. She's been taking the trash out every night, which is usually something I do. The first week or two, she was doing the dishes every night, which is usually something that I do. And however, very different from my last relationship, we share cooking responsibilities. Some nights we just do dinner on our own. Most nights she does some form of cooking, and I cook 2 nights a week. I cook on Wednesdays and Sundays. But I haven't been able to cook. I was able to cook this past week. I cooked us a taco lasagna on this past Wednesday. And I'll have to get back into the cooking on Wednesdays and Sundays coming up here, because my foot is feeling much better. My almost 25 minutes into this, my ankle is much better than it was. I'm off of the crutches pretty much. I still got to move around with one crutch for the most part, but I'm mostly off the crutches and walking around with either just the boot. I walked around a little yesterday with no boot and felt fine. So anyways, what I had really wanted to talk about was failure, and every single one of you, multiple times for me, probably multiple times for you, has experienced failure from time to time. But choosing to be too careful can hold you back and sabotage your efforts to achieve your goals. For so much of my life, I have been scared of failure, and I went over that a lot when I did my first solo back in November, and I've spent so much time being scared of failure, and it's because I'm afraid that I won't be perfect. And I have learned that I'm not perfect, and you're not perfect, and I'm telling you now, you don't have to be perfect to get whatever it is that you want, to achieve whatever it is you want, to go for the goal that you want. If you want to do something, you can apply effort and get there. You can try it, because I can tell you this, trying is risky, but wait until you get the bill for not trying. Everything is risky. Getting married is risky. Having kids is risky. Going into business is risky. Starting a podcast is risky. Taking flying lessons is risky. Snowmobiling just in general is risky. Everything that you do every day that you get out of bed and decide to walk out the door and get in your car or go for a walk or get on a bicycle or whatever it is you do, every day you are inviting risk into your life. And yeah, some things are more risky than others. Sometimes it's more risky than others, but you take risks every single day already. So why not add a few more? Why not just go for it? Just go for it. Go for the jump. Go for the fucking big air. Go for the thing. Go for the girl. Go for the guy. Go for the job. Go for whatever it is that you want. And I'm tired. I am fucking tired of being the person who's scared of failure. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to try things. I tried flying, and I'm still flying, and I tried for that jump, and I'm going to try for it again. Maybe not that exact same spot, maybe not the exact same way. Maybe I'll take a few extra runs at it before I try to go at it full bore, but I'm not done trying things and taking risks. I'm not going to risk things that I know are going to risk my life, but I am going to risk things that I think at the end of it, either I'm going to fail and learn, or I'm going to come off of it saying, fuck yeah, and be excited that I got what I wanted out of it. Don't ask the universe for security. Ask for adventure. I'll tell you how risky life is. You're not going to get out alive. You will fail. You will probably fail often. And it'll be discouraging, and there will be times when it tests you to your core. The wealthiest place on the planet is not in New York City at the stock exchanges or at the top of Trump Tower, or the White House, or Fort Knox, or the oil in the desert, or diamond mines in Africa. Those are not the wealthiest places on the planet. The wealthiest places on the planet are the cemeteries where dreams that people had have gone to die, where all those people who decided to never take a risk, they died with them. Those dreams died with them. Those chances that were never taken, the things that could have happened, the lives that could have been, it all died right there. And that's where you can find the wealthiest places on the planet. You can find all those dreams that are gone. So I don't want to be like that. I want to live a life that has some risk in it. I might just be a fucking friendly neighborhood mailman at the end of the day. I might just be a good boyfriend who would bend over backwards to make his girlfriend happy. But I still want to know that I lived my life. I lived. I don't want to, I don't want my last breaths. I think about my mother sometimes, and if you don't know, she was killed by a drunk driver, but it wasn't like it was immediate. She was laying on the ground outside the car. She was alive for 2 more hours after the accident. She, rode in the ambulance. She got to the hospital. She died in surgery. So I think about, those last moments that she was alive and what she might have thought of. And I'll never know. I don't know if anyone will ever know. But I think about that stuff. I think about how, when it's me, when it's my time, and I don't know when that'll be, and I have no idea how I'll go, but when it's down to my final breaths, if I have that opportunity, if I have that chance like my mom did of being, of dying, but having 2 more hours to go, and the thoughts in my head of, am I going to make it through this? What would I think? And I know that if that were the case for me, I want to be able to say I took the risk. My mother was a correspondent. I don't know if she's not a correspondent. She worked for a local news station here in New Hampshire, but she always wanted to be a flight attendant. And she applied for Delta Airlines, and she didn't get the job. And I'll never forget that day when she didn't get that job, because I was at home and she got the letter in the mail, and it was me, her, and my father sitting on the couch, and she was crying because she didn't get the job. But you know what she didn't do? She didn't fucking give up. She didn't stop trying. It was 2 years later, she applied to American Airlines, and she got that job, which actually ended up being a better job anyways, and she loved it. So she took the risk. She experienced the failure of applying for the job that she wanted. She didn't care where she went. She just knew she wanted to be a flight attendant. She took the risk. She failed, and then she kept trying, and she ended up with a better job. So, if anything, that's what I take away from that, is to keep fucking trying. Don't give up. Just because you got declined one place doesn't mean you shouldn't keep trying. So, anyways, this went on longer than I probably thought it would. I thought it was going to be like a 5-minute episode, and honestly, it's one of my favorite episodes now. This is kind of back to what I wanted in the first place, was to be able to just talk and express my own feelings and thoughts, and without the audience of thinking I need to be able to talk to, these people that are watching, these people that are, commenting or whatever. I have to check in on the comments and see who says something. This was how it was always supposed to be in the first place anyways. It was supposed to be just a place for me to offload my own thoughts, and if people wanted to listen, then they could. So yeah, that's all for me tonight. And I hope that you enjoyed the episode as much as I did. See ya.